now we're discussing squatters' rights in Ohio. Okay? And you live in San Francisco right now. So we're going to talk about that in a second. Mm-hmm. But you were my first roommate when I came home from prison. I had met a guy at AA that I was dating that turned out to end up to be a violent heroin addict.
And somehow he decided to live with us. It's
not like we didn't know. I didn't know what squatters' rights back then was, but he knew.
Listen, he did live with us. We let him live there, but he wasn't on the lease.
Right.
And,
but I didn't know that if you just had a piece of mail.
He was it was a living nightmare. He was violent, doing drugs. I mean, I couldn't, one day, when Amy and him went to the Taco Bell across the street, I had enough, and I had to lock them out. And then what happened?
Well, then what happened, and it's important for me to mention that Grant has no criminal record, you have no addiction issues and no mental health issues, because the police ended up telling you were a mental basket. Basically, you needed to be in some kind of mental health facility.
Yeah.
And we had already called them several times, because this guy was beating me so bad, and Grant couldn't take it. I mean, and because you said, I'm a felon, you're gay.
Mm-hmm.
And they just felt like, what? How did they judge us?
I think it was, like a laugh. There was a laugh for them.
Yeah, they thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And every time we called them, they kind of thought it was, we weren't somebody that they took.
So the law is, if you have a piece of mail, if you have, like, even little as any sort of apparel or even a toothbrush, they told us that is enough to qualify residency, and they have every right to be there as you do, even if you're on the lease or not on the lease.
Every right, the same rights we had.
Yeah, I mean, the idea behind it is to protect, people from just being kicked out and being homeless. That's the idea behind it. But unfortunately, in our situation, it let a madman into our home and stay there.
Literally. He was going, this is my house, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And so the police, the final day, the final thing was, we went to Taco Bell, and we came back. It was really cold outside. Grant said that I could come in. Chad knew by this time, because we called the police.
He knew the game.
He knew the game. So he called the police and told the police that Grant wouldn't let him in his house. He called it his house.
Yeah.
And he wasn't paying any rent or anything. He was peeing on me, walking me like a dog, beating me violently when you were at school, when you were at college. And, it was god-awful. But at the end of the day, the police Grant was plastered against the door because he was so traumatized what we've been going through. Heroin in our house, spoons everywhere, blood in our bathroom. He was shooting up bath salts in his neck. And Grant was plastered against the glass, and when the police got there, he was like that. And the police told Chad to kick down the door, didn't he? He said, go ahead and kick down the door. And then they started making fun of you, didn't they, Grant?
Yeah, saying I was the one with issues. I mean, I was crying at this point, but I was, I had, reached my boiling point, my wit's end, and, I was going to do anything not to let this person into my house. Your home is your sanctuary.
Right.
If you don't feel safe in your own home, then, you can't survive.
And you even said, because he was so violent, I mean, did we ever even consider, going, taking street justice? But no, we didn't. We were the ones that he was attacking us and everything. But the police let him
terrorize us
and kick down the door. And then you had to end up, because I have no money, because, I couldn't get a decent job to save my life when I came home from prison. And it's still basically that situation. But I work for God, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, you paid for that. Well, I do. Stop it, Grant. I do. So you had to pay for that door, didn't you?
Yeah, I paid for the door, and I paid for you to move.